Hello, my name's Eric Hanscom. I'm an intellectual property attorney here in Carlsbad, California. I'm putting on a class basically for drone flyers in the world of trademarks. And so I'm going to go over some things that drone flyers should know about trademarks as it relates to their business and their personal experiences. Now, I'm going to attach in the bottom a PowerPoint presentation so you can follow along, and I'll go page by page. So the first page, we talk a little bit about the differences between patents, trademarks, and copyrights as intellectual property. Now, a patent is a way that you can protect either the shape or the function of basically an idea. A trademark, on the other hand, is a way that you can protect something that identifies your business. So something like a logo or a name or a slogan, something like that, that shows the general purchasing public whose goods they're buying or whose services they're buying. A copyright is the third type of intellectual property, and that covers artistic impressions of things like photographs, songs, stuff like that. So let's turn to the next page, and here we've got an example of a utility patent. Now, this is a patent that I got for the wetsuit company O'Neill a few years ago on a pair of surfing trunks called the Super Freak. Now, the function of these trunks was important. Surf trunks have kind of looked the same for the last, 40 or 50 years, but this one in particular had a stretchy panel that went across the back so that the crotch of your surf shorts didn't rip out when you bent down to go for a tube ride. So with this particular invention, the function was important, so we went for a utility patent. On the next page, you see the famous Craig Ferguson Rattlesnake mug. This appeared on the Late Show with Craig Ferguson, and because the shape of this particular coffee mug was important, we got a design patent. We probably couldn't have gotten a utility patent because the idea of having basically a container with round sides and a flat bottom that holds liquids, that's not exactly novel. The prior art, that is the previous inventions that we'd have to write the utility patent over and around, go back probably to cave person times. As soon as they figured out that they could use the horn of a bison or something like that to drink out of, there's your container with a solid bottom that held liquids. But the shape of this particular coffee mug was most certainly unique, and that's why we were able to get the design patent on it. And it last time I checked, it was for sale on Amazon, and I let's see, I have my personal autograph copy right there that we keep on our wall. I always try to keep samples of fun inventions that I've dealt with. So anyway, we have one of those lying around the office. Okay, next page is, let's go over copyrights for a minute, and then we're going to go right into the trademarks. So what does a copyright do for you? Well, it protects art. And so art for a drone operator, it could be your photographs, the videos you've shot, any posters or advertising materials you prepared for a trade show. These are all basically artistic expressions. You can also trademark your website, and you'd be amazed how many people will steal stuff from your website. There's this general opinion running around the internet sometimes that says, oh, if it's on the internet, it's okay for me to take. Well, not so. If you do happen to be a drone photographer like I am, I'd urge you to run Google image searches on your images from time to time to see who's stealing them. And sometimes if you go to page 6, you can see this is one of my photographs, and when I ran Google image search on it, somebody else had grabbed it. I think this is somewhere in Eastern Europe, but this particular shot, I've had puzzles that were made without my permission. I've had t-shirts. I've had the print for sale all over the world, and I haven't seen a dime from it. So anyway, it doesn't make me very happy. So usually when that happens, I notify the people and tell them to stop using it unless they want to pay me for it. So that's copyright, how you enforce copyright against somebody who's stealing your goods. Now, with a patent, you have to file for a patent application that you either get or you get rejected from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. With a copyright, you should be filing copyright registration applications with the Library of Congress. Okay, so let's talk about trademarks a little bit. Now, a lot of people, when they start a business, they say, well, I don't really want to spend any money on intellectual property. How about if I just see how it goes, and a year or two later, if it's working out well, then I'll think about getting the trademark. Well, the problem with that is that you're building up the value of your name that you're choosing before you know if you can protect it or not. And so, it's like, why don't you see from the beginning if it's a name that you can protect, and then it makes sense to build up the value. So when you start a business, the value of the business is your ideas, the people who work there, any inventions you have, the stock, the inventory that's lying up on your shelves. That's pretty much the business. After you've been operating for a couple of years, hopefully you've got some patents on any patentable items there, and so the value of the business kind of shifts from the goods on the shelf to your patent portfolio. Well, patents naturally expire. For design patents, 15 years from the date of issue. For utility patents, 20 years from the date of filing. So you end up with roughly 15 to 17 years of useful life for a patent, after which it expires. So, sooner or later, unless you're a company like Apple that is continually coming out with new products, a lot of the value is going to be in the name. And so if, eventually 20, 25 years after you start a company, if you're going to sell it, one of the most valuable components of that business is going to be the name. So why don't you do a decent job on it? Now, page 9 here is a list I got from Forbes a few years ago on the 10 most valuable trademarks. And if you look at this list, you notice that other than Apple, everyone's trademark is worth 15 to 25% of their business. So let's look at Google. Over a quarter of Google's value is just their trademark. I mean, it's not the buildings they own, it's not the people that work there, it's not the net sales, it's the trademark itself. And so again, if you're going to start a business, why don't you pick a good name, make sure that you can get a trademark on it, and then go from there. Now, Apple is kind of the outlier here, because with Apple, only 10% of the company's value is in its trademark. One of the reasons for that is Apple is such an innovative company that it still has a lot of active patents, and it's getting more patents all the time. So without Apple, sooner or later, if they ever run out of ideas, then the value will shift to the trademark. But right now, Apple is doing so much inventing that its real value is in the patent portfolio. All right, page number 10, why bother getting a trademark at all? Well, the first thing is that a registered trademark is essentially your license to use the name. And until you've registered the trademark, you've got a name that you can put the TM after it. You can hope that that will protect you, but you're always going to be using a name that you don't know if you're really going to be able to get. The second reason to get a trademark is that a registered trademark is kind of the first defense against a trademark infringement lawsuit that somebody else may bring. So somebody may say, well, I think your name is getting too close to my name, so I'm going to sue you for trademark infringement. Well, your best defense there is to say, well, here's my trademark. How could my trademark be too close to your trademark if the United States Patent and Trademark Office examiner gave me a trademark on the name that you're accusing me of using to infringe your name? It's a good first line of defense. Okay, page 11. What kind of things can be trademarked? Well, you can trade all sorts of funky things, like Colin Kaepernick, trademark Kaepernicking, and Tim Tebow, trademark Tebowing, and you can get the racing scent of vehicle lubricants. The cherry scent has been trademarked. So you can trademark some weird stuff, but for most people, it's either the name, the logo, or the slogan. And we got 3 examples here of a name, a logo, and a slogan. These are the things you normally trademark. So if you're a business owner and you've got a drone business going, if you're selling drones, you want to trademark the name of the drone, probably the name of your business. If you want to get a 2-for-1, have the name of your business also be the name of the drone. If you have a service, if you're a drone instructor, if you do commercial shoots, things like that, trademark on the name of your business would be a good idea to make sure you can actually use it. Now, this isn't right there. This is on page 12. They're state and they're federal trademarks. Now, I'm unfortunately old enough so that when I started as a lawyer, We all knew there's this thing called the internet, but none of us knew how to do it. I mean, Steve Jobs knew how to do it, Bill Gates knew how to do it, none of the rest of us did. We didn't have websites. So you had an office that was on the walk between the parking lot and the courthouse, and you hope people walked by your office and said, oh, I might use that lawyer later on in my life. Well, in those days, a state trademark that protected you just in the state in which it was granted was a really good idea. But over time, with this little thing called the World Wide Web, all of a sudden you can have a tiny little business, and you can, if you pay for search engine optimization and things like that, you can be seen all over the world by everybody. So at this point, state trademarks are not quite as valuable as federal trademarks, and I always urge people to go federal if you have a choice. All right, page 13. This is probably the most important page for someone starting a business to look at, and it kind of ranks the types of trademarks in terms of from dark green, which means they're probably going to go through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office examination very quickly and at very little cost to the applicant, all the way down to orange or red, which means you're probably going to have a really hard time getting this trademark, and it's going to cost you a lot of money just to get to the point where the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office examiner sends you a final rejection and says, we're not giving you this trademark. So let's start off at the top. These are fanciful marks. Now, a fanciful mark is something that's just made up, like Exxon for gas. Whoever thought that EXXON would have anything to do with gasoline? It doesn't. Polaroid. What is a Polaroid? Okay, we all know that a Polaroid is basically a term for an automatic camera that prints the pictures right out of the camera, but who would have thought that the name Polaroid would have anything to do with cameras? Nobody. And so the easiest mark to get is a fanciful one, because if you make it up, what possibly could be the consumer confusion that result from it? The next one down there is an arbitrary mark. Now, an arbitrary mark is a word that is known in the English language, but is not commonly associated with these types of goods. So, for example, Apple computers. Everybody knows what an Apple is, but nobody thought that an Apple should have any relation to a computer until Steve Jobs thought it up. So anyway, next on the line we have an arbitrary mark. A little bit further down we have suggestive and descriptive. And the distinction here is important, because a suggestive mark is kind of an arbitrary mark, but it sort of hints something about the quality of the product. So for example, Greyhound. Everybody knows that Greyhound is a dog, and it has nothing to do with a bus line, but it implies that the buses are very fast. And so anyway, that's kind of a suggestive mark. Microsoft, little software, kind of implies that, but they're not fully descriptive, and a descriptive mark is one you're likely to get rejected. So descriptive mark pretty much describes what the thing does. So for example, Windows for Microsoft Windows, it kind of describes windows that come up. And you notice that the examples I gave here under descriptive marks that were granted are all by companies for whom $500,000 into a trademark battle is probably small change. But when you're starting a business, you probably don't want to be sinking huge money into a huge trademark fight. So wouldn't it be better to head a little bit higher up on that list toward fanciful or arbitrary? Now, the last one there is a generic mark, and a generic mark is one that just describes the class of goods. So if I started a surfboard company and I called it surfboards, you're not going to get that trademark. So a lot of people say, well, the advertising people told me that my trademark has to tell people what I do. Well, it shouldn't really tell people what you do. So my advice is, why don't you go for a fanciful or an arbitrary name for the business, and then as your slogan, put in the generic or the descriptive word. So for example, if you're starting a surfboard company, call it Purple Unicorn Surfboards, the best surfboards in California, or something like that. And Purple Unicorn is obviously arbitrary. I just made it up. It has nothing to do with surfboards. So anyway, that would be my suggestion on how to get going on that. Okay, now we're to page 14. This isn't as bad as it looks. I know it looks like I don't want to deal with this, but it's not that bad. When you file a trademark application, usually 4 to 5 months after application, it gets examined, and the examiner either goes, yes, I'm going to give it to you, or no, I'm going to reject it. The rejection, it's just like a patent rejection. The first time around, you're allowed to submit arguments and reasons why you think it should be trademarkable, just like with a patent application. You can submit arguments why you think it should be patentable. You can submit a response. Usually you do it by writing. Occasionally you'll call the examiner, but that's kind of difficult to make your arguments over the phone. They're more likely to say, well, yeah, thanks for taking up my time. Just put it in a response and file it the way you should have done it. When you get a final rejection, you can appeal, but that's going to be expensive. So hopefully, you don't get to the point where you get a final rejection. Now, if it's allowed, if you look at the chart there, it depends on, well, there's an in use and an intend to use status, but that's a little bit beyond the course of the scope of a basic course like this. It goes then through a publication period. Publication period is 30 days, during which anyone who feels that they're going to be damaged by this trademark issuing, that they can file what's called an opposition. You don't want to be opposed. Oppositions cost money and they take up a lot of time. So hopefully you don't get opposed. And then your trademark issues. Now, once a trademark issues, if you filed it in use, it's going to issue right after the publication period is over. If you filed it under intent to use, then you have to submit something called a statement of use with the specimen, pay the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office more money, and then you get your trademark as long as they like your specimen of use. Now, trademarks need to be renewed. They need to be renewed between the 5th and 6th year, then 9th and 10th, 19th, 20th, 29th, 30th, etc. So after the first 5-year renewal, they need to be renewed every 10 years after the trademark issues. If you don't renew it, it goes abandoned. And you have to prove you're still using it in commerce, and you have to prove that you're using the exact same mark that you filed on. I've got another YouTube video in the same on the same channel about what makes for a good specimen of use for renewal, but you'd be amazed how many people get a trademark and then 5 years later they're using it. They're using a different word or a different conjunction of the word, or if they got a trademark on their logo, they've changed their trademark logo. So it's got to be just as it was filed. Okay. All right. What to do if you get a final rejection? The first thing is stop using the word, because if you got a final rejection that says that we're rejecting you over this other trademark, you've got a public record that says that you're basically you're in danger of causing consumer confusion by being so close to this other trademark. So stop using it. And there are a couple things you do. And my first advice is you shouldn't be in the position. If you'd gotten a decent trademark search done in the first place, you probably wouldn't be looking at a final rejection. And so my advice is stop using it, go back to the drawing board, pick a new name. If you want to, you can request something called a letter of consent from the trademark holder over whom you're being rejected. This can go two ways. Either they can be nice and they can say, yeah, sure, man, no problem. Or they can say, well, thank you for alerting us to your trademark infringement. Now, we want a lot of money from you. So it can go either way. But again, you try to avoid this by having a trademark search done in the beginning. Page 16, this is the kind of letter that you get from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in a final rejection. And if you notice the middle paragraph, it says, is likely a potential customer would be confused, mistaken, or deceived as to the source of goods. All right, that's a public record. And so you probably don't want to keep using a name when that's already been said about the name that you're using. Okay, we're almost done. How to get started. I'm going to attach some information here that you can use. You can share it with your friends. I don't care. My advice is read up as much as you can about it. Then do a trademark search. You can do your own on uspto.gov, trademarks, search trademarks, but realize that you can get rejected over a similar or identical trademark in a different category So, for example, if you're making boots, you can be rejected over the same name that's only selling jackets because they're both in class 025 for clothing. My advice: go with a professional trademark search. I put the contact of a guy. It's a company. He's the contact for the company. They'll do it for $450. There are other people who can do trademark searches out there. I would not have the trademark attorney who's going to do the trademark filing do it. I don't do it because of a potential conflict of interest. And frankly, other people can do it a lot cheaper than my frankly high hourly rate of $595 an hour. So, my advice is don't spend your money with the trademark attorney who's going to do the filing. Pay an outside company to do it. Look at the trademark search results, and then if you think there's a danger that you're going to get rejected or that it's going to really tick off somebody, especially a really large company with lots of money, my advice is go back and start again. I have some clients who, when they're thinking about going with a product, they'll give me 2 or 3 names, have trademark searches done on all. In some cases, will file on more than one name with the idea that by the time they're really ready to launch the company, they've already got at least one of those 2 or 3 names that's actually been trademarked. And that is it for today's presentation. Thank you very much for watching. If you're still here at the end, I guess you're not completely bored to tears. And you're welcome to leave comments. I will try to get around to answering them when I can. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.